welcome. Today we're joined by Tim Clark, the CEO of Fury Gold Mines. We'd like to hear from Tim about his career and what made him join Fury Gold Mines. Tim Clark from Fury Gold Mines, over to you.
Well, thanks, Johan. It's awfully fun to be here in Johan's office, especially with the Fury hat right behind him. Well, Johan and I have worked together for a long time in the capital markets. I had a career of about 23, 24 years working for the global banks and in banking and sort of sales. Effectively, I moved over to the corporate side about a year ago to Fury and joined the board. And then they asked me a few months later to take over as CEO. It's been almost closing in on a year now. Look, what attracted me to good companies over the last couple decades has been really about working with great people. If you don't have a good corporate culture and you don't have people who are really excited to be where they are and work well together, it's going to be really a challenge. I like both the board and I liked especially our geology team. They're a team that I think would be worthy of any major out there right now. So from a junior perspective, that gives us a lot of leverage. What I liked about Fury, which I don't think you see in too many junior companies, is they have multiple assets. So they had an ability to pivot. And I also thought they were trying to be too many things to too many people. And I think, again, going back to my experience in the capital markets, is you want to be great at what you do well. And we have a great exploration team. The company was trying to be a development hybrid, and that requires to raise a lot more money in the market. I didn't think the timing was such, and I also thought we were spreading ourselves too thin from a labor and actually financing point of view. So we quickly sort of honed in on our strategy and cleaned things up, made it simpler. And so we sold an asset called Homestake Ridge to Dolly Varden Silver. We now own a third of that company. It's a great company based out in the Golden Triangle in BC. It's a very prolific area for discovery. And that was basically a transformational sale for us. It put $5 million in the bank and then $45 million in stock that we'll be able to free trade come next February. Our market cap is only $105 million. It's small. So having that kind of access to finance is really a game changer for us. We did want to push through for a summer program this summer. So we raised another $11 million, and we did it with a very senior producer in Canada and a top-tier institutional fund in the United States. So my goal here has been to try and sort of lean into what I also thought was successful is working with really good partnerships. And we've already have Newmont in our stock. It's 5%. We do have a joint venture with them in Quebec. We've got a really core asset that we want to see built out significantly, and we're in the process of drilling right now. And so this sort of brings me around full circle is, once you clean up a company and get things really transition the way you want it to, what's the next leg to get your stock going? The stock has been flat for 9 months. It hasn't traded up at all. We haven't gotten any credit for the work we've done, and I think we've done significant work to make this a better place. And we have 2 months of drilling behind us, and we're waiting for our assay results. We're focused on doubling down in Quebec. We think it's a very supportive area of Canada in terms of globally. It's probably number 2 or number 3 in the world in terms of support by a government for the mining industry. The area that we're in is in the James Bay Dam region. It's an area that we had to fly in 15 years ago with a helicopter site, but because of the dam, it's got infrastructure and it's got hydropower, which seniors love to see in this day and age of ESG. The cost structure is a lot better than if we were running back up to our project up in Nunavut. And I think we're sort of have some really great targets on our core asset called Eclair. We also are stepping out in another region of the territory, which is about 14 kilometers to the east, called Percival. And we're hoping to get those results back sort of July, August, heading into what I think could be a very good time this fall with the gold and silver market.
Great. Well, it's always good to hear someone like you in your position mention step-out drilling, because that's not normally associated with a small cap junior mining company, right? They all want to do, or everyone wants to raise the amount of ounces that they found rather than You know,
Well, we know to be fair, it's a balance. You got to do both. You want to advance your resource, and you need to always be thinking about raising money, and that's a big trick. We're stepping out and taking risk in terms of trying to make this project bigger. The size is important. We're at 1.3 million ounces right now, and you need to show a pathway to 2 million ounces to have a mid cap or large cap, take real interest in wanting to buy you out. We are an exploration company, so the big focus right now is exploration. So, as I said, we've been drilling for a couple months. We're going to start a second drill in Percival. We'll have those drilling, both of them, through the summer, and then we'll have the one in Declare going through year end. Look, the more money we have, the better we can advance the project and bring it forward for these companies to take a look. And that's what we're trying to do, is block and tackle. My feeling, though, is that I'm very investor sensitive, so I'm not interested in taking money and raising capital at this point at these prices. I think we'd be giving our stock away. But I'm very happy to be drilling, because a lot of companies are not, and there's going to be a lot of potential news out there. We could have some news out in terms of our plan for the joint venture in terms of drilling that. So if you're looking at Fury, there should be a lot of flow of information coming up this summer, and that's what you want.
So just last week you announced you've got the second drill rig in operation now that's going into the Percival target, right? So that means we're kind of close to getting some assay results from the first set of drills.
Yeah.
Going to get that over the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. Well, we basically started with the eastern extension of Eau Claire. There's a 204,000 ounce block there that's got 11.8 grams, and we have an opportunity to kind of poke in around that and shore that up and see if we can come up with another block that's pretty significant for the resource. But we're just finished our last hole on the Hinge. We put 4 holes in there. That's on the western side, and I think that's where our geologists are super excited to see what's there. And then we're going to step out to the north, called the North Limb. It's not had any drilling there before. We can't figure out why, because when we look at the geology, it points to maybe some opportunity. So that's the Claire, and then we have some other regions along the main project. But Percival, like you mentioned, they've got historic drilling of 100,000 ounces there. The previous owners of East Main didn't really go and follow the trajectory of where we think the geometry takes us. They were looking for a shallow open pit. And when we went back and inverted the magnetics, we found that not only is this plunging down to the west, but there's another fold hinge to about 500 meters to the east that looks even bigger. So we're going to find those results out when the assays come back. Right now they're running about 8 weeks, so give or take. It's not as bad as it was last year, but we're going to have to wait for those.
So tell me, you talked about the two companies involved at the top structure. Perhaps you can talk about the asset structures as well. You've got the Newmont joint venture on the go there. There's surely negotiations around that. That's an asset that's inoptimally structured at this point, and potentially also Dolly Varden and Hecla Mining, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's quite a lot of action with the big boys. You're sitting with the right neighbors.
Well, look, as you know, my background has been an institutional side, and so I do have some of these relationships, and I've been able to leverage them in these circumstances. Look, Newmont's a little different. They historically own 5% of us, and they had an existing agreement on the joint venture. The joint venture is something that's not in our stock. It's not in any analyst models. We don't get any value for it whatsoever. But I will tell you, we're working closely with Newmont the last 6 to 9 months, and they want to drill that property. There's a 5.5 kilometer anomaly that we vetted out. It was from data from 2006 that hadn't been looked at. And I can't tell you if it's worth 10 million or 50 million, but I know there's value there. And as you look and invest in stocks, that's what you're looking for. When you look out on Dolly Varden, look, my job is not to take in the money and invest in other companies. But the reason why we took the shares is because I think there's a lot of value in the 2 properties of Dolly Varden and Homestake in terms of synergies out there. And what I think most investors don't realize is Hecla owns 90% of the land around them, and they want to get bigger. And Phil Baker, the CEO, has been a friend of mine for 20 years. I'm on the board as well as with Mike Hendrickson, who's our senior geologist. And we're working with Hecla, who's also on the board. They own 10%, and Sprott owns, I think, another 7 or 8%. I think that if you're looking at, as a generalist, into the silver market, Hecla is a great play because it's the largest one out there, but they need to get bigger. And they told me specifically that they want to see that asset get bigger. Dolly has 26 million bucks in the bank, in the treasury. They're drilling. They've got 30,000 meter program this summer. Sean Kun is thinks a lot like me. I think we're going to make money out of that. So if you think about what Fury could look like in 3 to 5 years, it could be a lot bigger. I mean, we could walk out of there with easily $100 million if we get a push in the market in silver. What happens with the joint venture with Newmont? Well, Newmont's the biggest player in an area where there's a lot of ounces floating around. We'll have to find out, but my goal here is to create value for investors. We also have a 300-kilometer asset up in Nunavut called Committee Bay. We tabled that for this year because it's a bull market play in terms of spending money up there. And again, going back to this, is the big players out there have a lot of money. They've been cash flow positive for a while with gold at $1,850 or higher, and they're going to have to spend money to replace those ounces. And so when you look at the junior space, what you want are guys who have a good quality, a team, good culture. They align with you in the assets. Do you want to do exploration? I say the same thing to Newmont. They said, no, we want you to do it, and we're looking for good people. So I think there's a real niche within the marketplace to be a top-tier exploration company. We're further along, I think, because we've had some drilling. We're not going to do a PEA study anytime soon because they are expensive, and we would rather put that money in the ground. We've cut 30% of our costs and expenses in the last year, and we'd like to do more. I think we're doing a lot right, and the feedback we're getting from the companies is that what we're doing is what they want to see us doing, and it's a nice compliment because they're some of the best.
For our investors, can we expect this company to look like? What do you think?
Well, I mean, look, again, we are 105 million market cap. A lot of my relationships, though, in the capital markets investor side are institution. It's hard to find the liquidity in the company in 105 market cap. I would like to get bigger, and whether you do that through the drill bit or whether you find other resources that match up and align with your interests and the companies that you're working with. I again fall back to the fact that I've got really great partnerships. It's been made very clear to us that they want to work with us. These companies want to work with us because it's a benefit to them. And I think that if I had my druthers, I think that this is the market where you can find interesting assets here for cheap. A lot of people can't raise money right now. We're unique. We have a bunch of money in the bank. We got a bunch of money that we can take next year if we get an asset sale in particular. We could be a much bigger company in 3 years from now. I'm looking for value, and I'm looking for opportunity that's going to make money for my shareholders. We're doing that job.
Yes, well, I think you're definitely doing the right thing. So far, we've seen already restructuring of the assets of Homestake Ridge into Dolly Varden. I think that was a great move. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
I would love to meet your investors over here because there's a lot of interesting things happening right now in the market, and it's going to be fun.
Great. I'm looking forward to that. And look out for details on how to contact us to see Tim and other investors. Thank you very much, guys. All the best.
Take care. Bye.